Well, let's explore this a little more with Matt Qvortrup, who is a professor of political science at Coventry University, and he joins us now from London. Good to have him on the programme, Matt. Thanks for being with us. So, as we were hearing from our correspondent there, some pretty damning language in this report from civil servant Sue Gray. She said there was a failure of leadership and there was rule-breaking. So this was an update rather than a full report, but do you think that Boris Johnson will survive this?
In the short run, he might survive it. I think he'd do anything he can to stay in. But, you know, the Teflon is wearing thin. And Boris Johnson is a charismatic politician. And charismatic politicians are not necessarily geniuses, but they are seen to be geniuses by the people who support them. But once those people realise that the prophet is not, in fact, the prophet, then, you know, things happen very, very quickly. And that it could go down very, very quickly for him. So I think when the police report comes out, it's very unlikely that he'll be able to survive that. What he could do, he might be able to win within Parliament, but if he's been found guilty of an offence, he then becomes liable to what we call the Recall Act, where 10% of the constituents in his constituency can demand a vote on whether he should remain a member of Parliament. He has a relatively thin majority, so he could lose, basically be kicked out by the people, not by Parliament. Having said that, the Conservative Party is normally quite ruthless when it comes to that. Literally in the first couple of months of the Second World War, Neville Chamberlain was ousted, Margaret Thatcher was ousted at a time of international crisis where we're about to go to war with Iraq. So the Conservative Party has got form on this, and when they can see that a leader is unlikely to win and a general election, that's the time when the knives traditionally have come out.
So what, if anything, could save him?
It's very, very difficult to see what could save him. There would have to be something that completely changes that. But it's, again, as I said, once the Teflon is wearing thin, it's very difficult to replace that. You know, when Teflon doesn't work on your frying pan, you throw it out. And he is, to use that unfortunate metaphor, very much like a frying pan. And I suppose one could, to extend the metaphor, and say it's the Conservative Party, you know, it could be from the frying pan into the fire, because they don't really know who could replace him. And that's sort of the problem with Margaret Thatcher. They had Michael Heseltine, they had other people who could stand in. There's no obvious alternative to Boris Johnson, but his popularity is lower than that of Theresa May, who's had one of the lowest levels of popularity ever. The Conservative Party is behind in the opinion polls, and it's and then I think the other day, Vladimir Putin didn't take his call. Vladimir Putin has referred to Boris Johnson and Britain as a small island of Europe. So I think a lot of people will see him going abroad as being an attempt to salvage himself. And I think it's very, very, very unlikely. I can't really see what could happen that could save him. But British politics is different from European politics. When Sebastian Kurz, the former Austrian Chancellor, was challenged and found himself in a spot of bother, he resigned. The only one you can compare Boris Johnson to, who did not resign when there was a similar case, was Silvio Berlusconi. And in the end, Silvio Berlusconi was forced out. But that's a level we've come to in Britain, that we now have a Prime Minister who might be forced out because of his parties that may or may not be like the Bonga Bonga parties organised by Silvio Berlusconi.
And the additional problem for Boris Johnson is that this update isn't the end of the matter. There is, of course, the police report still to come and the full Sue Gray report that may well be published. So even if he wants to move on, he can't, at least for now.
No, and it's a thing that would stay in the headlines, and I think it was said before that this has a corrosive effect on the Conservative Party. It is not good for the country that we can't focus on this. We can't focus as long as he's there. It's not good for the Conservative Party. It's not good for democracy, frankly. So the Conservative Party will sooner or later realise that he is a liability, but it might be that they will wait for the May elections before they get rid of him. I find it difficult to see how he can survive for that long.
Matt Qvortrup, great to get your thoughts today. Thanks very much indeed for joining us on the programme.